Good evening and a very, very warm welcome to my YouTube this evening. My name's Chris and this evening we're going to take a look at 5 ATA lady pilots that flew during World War II. And the first of these is Jackie Moggeridge. She was born in South Africa. She joined the Hatfield Ferry Pool in the UK on the 29th of July 1940 and she was the youngest of all the female pilots at age 18. During the war, she safely handled over 1,500 aircraft during the war, 83 different types, 200 more than any other ATA pilot. She had a very lucky escape on the 5th of January 1941 when ferrying an Oxford Mark I to RAF Kidlington, Oxfordshire. With no RT, she was to meet with First Officer Amy Johnson, who was bringing in one from Blackpool. Both went off course in adverse weather conditions, with Amy Johnson following the rules, bailing out and drowning in the Thames estuary. Moggeridge went down to a few hundred feet and found herself over the Bristol Channel. With 20 minutes fuel remaining, she claimed that she didn't want to take to the chute because she had broken her leg during a parachute jump in 1938 in South Africa. Now we're going to hear in an interview that Jackie Moggeridge gave some years later, describing how she delivered the last Mosquito and she'd taken off. Unbeknown to her, peace had been declared, so when she landed, the war was over.
Well, when peace was declared, I had to take a Mosquito from the south to Aldergrove in Ireland. But I didn't know peace. That was the day that the 1 o'clock news said we were now at peace. Well, I took off just before that. As soon as I landed, there were dozens of... all the engineers were there. And the first one picked me up and whizzed me around. And then the other one would pick me up and whisk me around, and I said, just a minute, I'm going to be sick. What's happening? Why are you whizzing me around? Peace has been declared. You can take that Mosquito back. We don't want it.
Amy Johnson was flying for the Air Transport Auxiliary during World War II, and on a cold, wet and windy morning, Amy had set off in an airspeed Oxford from Prestwick in Scotland. She was going to fly via Blackpool to RAF Kidlington at Oxford. Later that morning she landed at schedule at Blackpool. The weather had deteriorated further and Amy took off in thick freezing fog from Squires Gate, Blackpool. Unfortunately she never arrived at RAF Kidlington. Now we're going to hear from some of her fellow ATA pilots who spoke after about some of the reasons that Amy Johnson was lost over the River Thames on that cold January day 1941. We hear from Lettice Curtis, a fellow ATA service pilot, about some of the reasons that Amy Johnson lost her life on that cold January day. Could I just ask a huge favour? Please consider subscribing to my channel. It really helps to push out the films far and wide. Your support is very much appreciated. Thank you.
On the 6th of January 1941, Amy Johnson set off on a flying mission to deliver an Oxford from Prestwick to Kidlington, but encountered thick cloud and low-lying mist en route.
Each pilot had an Oxford to take from all over England to go to Kidlington. Amy was bringing hers from Scotland in Prestwick, and she landed at Blackpool to get a weather report. And they said to her, well, it's bad here, but, you'll be all right.
Well, I myself am pretty sure that she just got above cloud. In bad weather, when none of us were flying, it was a really bad day. And once you get out of sight of the ground, unless you can find a hole to come down through to see the ground, there's no way back.
She must have felt absolutely desperate, there was no gap in the clouds. Obviously not knowing where she was.
And I was on duty, it must have been 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, and a message came through that, I think it was an Oxford, I'm not sure, but had crashed in the Thames, and we chased around to find out who was overdue, and it was pretty obvious quite quickly that it was Amy Johnson.
I think she was in an Oxford, and we had to go to the back where the door was to get out of it. She managed to do that all right, but it was very cold, I think. And anyhow, the little naval vessel which went to pick her up, very difficult really to pick somebody up, actually, out of the water. And they really got a bit close. And she got sort of caught into the propeller, I suppose.
She really was sweet. I absolutely broke my heart when I heard she died. I feel like crying now.
Pauline Gower was born in England in 1910. She was the daughter of Sir Robert Vaughan Gower, a distinguished MP. He was also the co-owner of an air taxi service. She attended a Roman Catholic school and as a teenager survived a life-threatening illness. Gower started flying at the age of 18 and she became a licensed pilot before the age of 20. And she very much wanted to fly to India, but her father would not allow it. However, when she turned 21, he presented her with a Simmons Spartan two-seater aeroplane with a Cirrus 3 engine. Shortly afterwards, Gower, with another woman pilot, Dorothy Spicer, established an air taxi service. Spicer was qualified as a ground engineer, and she also held an A licence. Pauline Gower, although from a privileged background, had to find her own way in her chosen career as a pilot due to her family opposition. She supported herself with violin and music lessons in order to take her first flying lessons, and of course, as we know, she gained her A licence in 1930, and the following year got her B licence, which is a commercial licence, after lessons at the London Aeroplane Club at Stag Lane. As World War II approached, Pauline Gower campaigned for women pilots to be allowed to do their bit. In 1939, she was appointed a Commissioner of the Civil Air Guard. Later that year, she was appointed as Air Transport Auxiliary Second Officer and given the job of forming a women's section. The number of women pilots rose to 150, with a few flight engineers too, and they eventually flew all types of aircraft, from light trainers to four-engine bombers. Pauline Gower was awarded an MBE in 1942. Her exceptional leadership skills led to her appointment as Director of British Overseas Airways, the first woman in such a senior position in any national airline. Now here Mary Ellis, another former ATA pilot, gives her description of what a lovely person Pauline Gower was.
She was stationed at HQ, which was at Whitewater, so one didn't see her too often. But she was a splendid person, terribly sweet and kind. She did everything. She managed to get women into the Air Transport Auxiliary, and she just pursued this. And so we were flying everything. We were flying all these military aeroplanes, which was absolutely wonderful. I was flying Wellington one day, and I landed at the airfield. I taxied in, and then the ground crew came out to pick me up. There was this great big Wellington beside me, and I said, can we go, because I have to get my chit signed. And they said, no, we're waiting for the pilot. And I said, oh, well, I am the pilot. And to my amazement, they didn't believe me, and they went and searched the aeroplane. They found no one.
Eleanor Lettice Curtis was born on the 1st of February 1915. Eleanor was raised in Denbury, near Newton Abbot in Devon, interestingly. She was the fourth of 7 children whose father was Walter Septimus Curtis, and he was the lord of the manor of Denbury and a barrister. Opportunities for female graduates in 1937 were sparse, but when motoring past Holden Airfield in Devon in her Lancia Augusta, Lettice Curtis, after observing a plane landing, fell into the conversation with its pilot. Could a woman, she asked, be an aviator? £100 bequest from her grandmother funded her flying training, and she first learned how to manoeuvre a plane at Yapton Flying Club, which was located near Chichester. In June 1940, as the Battle of Britain began, Lettice received a letter of invitation from Pauline Gower. Lettice Curtis headed off in her Lancia from Southampton to Hatfield, where the chosen ATA first 8 women pilots were based. Lettice Curtis was one of the few ATA lady pilots during the Second World War to fly the heavy bombers. We're going to take a look at her at some of her escapades now and listen to some of the interviews she gave post-war.
My first one came, I'd gone up to Dumfries with an Oxford or something, and I rang Prestwick, which was what you normally did, and said, have you got anything that I can to get home in? And they said, oh, we've got a Hurricane that wants to come up from here. And I said, but I don't know that I'm cleared to fly them. And he just said, the operations just said, oh, women are cleared to fly them now. And you see, you didn't dare say no. So I had to, go down and get into the blasted thing and take it. I think my last job of the day was a typhoon to bring it back to Langley for overhaul. And it was a lovely day, lovely afternoon. And I got to Langley, and it had balloons around it, like all the factories did. And I was coming in south to north, and I looked at the windsock, and I thought, no, it'd be better the other way. And I was just going around the airfield, and the engine died on me. And I couldn't turn in to the airfield because of the balloons. So I had to go on round, and it didn't, it stopped altogether. So I had to crash land it by the railway, by Langley. I must have been turned sideways because I laid my head on that side and leg and everything. And an ambulance came out and they took me to hospital. I got out myself, walked up to the desk and said, will you sew up my head?
I had a tyre burst on takeoff, and the undercarriage was pulled off and the aircraft pretty well wrecked, until eventually it came to a stop and I was able to get out with everybody else because we were fully loaded with about 12 people on board the Anson. And we all crept out and we all seemed all right. The next day we realised we were covered in bruises, but otherwise we were perfectly all right and went on flying.
I truly hope you found this short film of some interest, portraying these very, very brave lady pilots during World War II. I look forward to seeing you on the next film. Take care, all the very best.